I want to thank you for being here tonight. Tonight's going to be an exciting night. Years ago, Kim and I, my wife and I, served on the island of Grenada. Brother Danny Whetstone and his wife Darlene served on the island of Grenada. And tonight's missionary is going to Grenada. And I thank you for being here. I'm excited you're here. Now, don't forget, your part of this conference is coming up. In just a couple of minutes, you're going to see a presentation from Rebekah Childers. While she's giving her presentation and you think of questions, put them in the comments so we have questions and answer time coming up. And I want you to have the opportunity to have your questions answered. So now, just in a moment, Ms. Childers' presentation is going to be shown. I've seen it already. In fact, I watched it twice, and I know you'll be blessed.
Every day, 151,600 hearts stop beating. Souls are dying, never having been told of the hope that Jesus alone can give. God is not willing that any should perish, but how will they hear if nobody teaches them? A beauty beyond imagination, crystal clear waters and white sand beaches spread over much of the coastline. Rushing waterfalls and rainforest add to the splendor of God's creation. The sunsets are like God painting a masterpiece no human ever could. But when you look beyond the dazzling scenery, you see the empty faces of those longing to be set free. Grenada is one of the smallest independent countries in the Western Hemisphere. This island country is located 96 miles north of Venezuela in the Caribbean Sea. At less than 30 miles long, Grenada is home to over 100,000 souls, souls lost in the darkness of sin, waiting for someone to show them the way. Outside of the tourist areas, physical poverty is around almost every corner. Elderly and young people alike often walk miles to get to their destinations. Many homes do not even have glass in the windows to protect them from the elements, like wind, rain, tarantulas, and scorpions. Unemployment rates are extremely high, resulting in a very hungry and needy people. Grenada has an immensely religious culture where appearance is very important. They have a strong head knowledge of God, but lack the understanding to differentiate between false doctrines and the truth. There are also strong ties to rituals and devil worship, which is evidenced during their carnival season, similar to the American Mardi Gras. When people wear costumes and dance in the streets, young people are influenced by satanic music. Alcoholism and immorality are rampant. More than 1/3 of children become victims of sexual crimes, and at least 75% of children are believed to be born outside of wedlock. Teen girls often drop out of school because of pregnancies. This creates a need for both nurseries and classes for younger children during youth meetings. The educational system is lacking, resulting in many children never learning to read or write efficiently. Even public schools are associated with a religion. A majority of them are Catholic. The Christian education is virtually non-existent in the primary and secondary schools. By the time children are 4 years old, most have already learned to recite memorized prayers and to follow the traditions of their ancestors, along with their false doctrines. They are blinded by the belief that salvation is by works, not by the free gift of God.
My name is Rebekah Childers. I was taught about God all of my life, but I did not truly accept Christ as my Savior until I was a freshman in Bible college. March 17th, 2009, God gave me a new life. It was then that I truly accepted Jesus as the only way to be saved from my sin. In May of 2012, I graduated from Ambassador Baptist College with a bachelor's degree in biblical studies and missions. God has put an indescribable love in my heart to reach children with the gospel message. During a life-changing survey trip to the island of Grenada, I had the privilege of leading several children to a saving knowledge of Christ. I enjoyed teaching elementary children and a youth girls Sunday school class. Observing the culture and soul winning in the local villages gave me a deeper insight into both physical and spiritual needs of the people there. Many will die having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. I believe God has called me to the island of Grenada to reach these people with the gospel message.
Rebekah's goal is to creatively minister through several different ways. Giving children a Christ-centered education, reaching the lost through a variety of evangelism techniques, encouraging parental involvement in the children's spiritual and academic growth, nurturing and training maturing believers, adapting to the culture to reach the children where they are, discipling newly saved children in areas of Christian growth, assisting the local church in other ministry areas.
My name is Paul Kingsbury. I'm the senior pastor of North Love Baptist Church, and Rebekah Childers is being sent out from our church to the mission field of Grenada. Children truly are the future of the churches, and particularly in Grenada. Rebekah uses dynamic methods to involve the children in hands-on experience, as well as teaching them to have a burden for others. She also ministers to adult ladies very effectively, and we highly recommend that you support her prayerfully and financially. Thank you.
Rebekah will be working with Lifeline Independent Baptist Church in St. Andrews, Grenada, which was established in 2017. Her brother, Pastor Joseph Childers, along with his wife and children, are already faithfully serving there. The time is short. Will you prayerfully consider helping to support Rebekah as she fulfills God's call as a missionary to these dear people? Will you hear the cries of the Grenadians before it is too late?
Wow. Thank you so much, Rebekah. That was wonderful. Thank you for that presentation. We sure love your home church, Dr. Kingsbury as well, and super proud that you are a missionary with Worldwide, graduate of Ambassador Baptist College. I understand your college president is watching as well. And so I want to ask you something. When did you know you could do nothing else but be a missionary to Grenada? Tell me about that moment.
Sure. Well, when I first went to Grenada, there were a lot of things that I didn't like. The bugs, the weather, the water, and they were all things that I thought I would just never be able to get used to. But while I was there, I began to visit with the people and just see what their spiritual needs and physical needs were. And within a couple of weeks after returning from my trip to the island, I found out that one of the ladies that I had led several of her children to Christ while I was visiting there, and she actually passed away giving birth to her fifth child.
Hmm.
And it was through that I realized just how short life really is. And then I started looking through some of the things that I had brought back from the island. One of them was a picture that one of her children had drawn for me, and
Hmm.
they wrote at the top, "Remember us."
Wow.
And I just looked at that and I knew without a doubt that there was nothing in my life that I would rather do than to reach those people with the gospel.
That's powerful, Rebekah. Thank you for sharing that with us. You know, it's interesting to me thinking of the other nights of our online missions conference where we talk about circumstances that God just divinely arranges and puts us in contexts and circumstances that make us listen a little bit better. And in that moment where He had you find that picture and remember us, that is powerful. And to think about, there are things that God remembers about us, and there are things God chooses to remember no more. And that's what's exciting about the Christian life. Rebekah, describe to me in simple terms what it's like to have a burden from God for Grenada.
Sure. Well, to me, it's just knowing that the place that I've called home all of my life isn't really where I belong, but
Mm,
knowing that God still has a purpose for me, and that purpose is for me to go to Grenada. I dream about Grenada and the people that I met there. I picture the faces of the children laughing and playing.
mhm,
It consumes my mind, and there's nothing I can do to escape that. And
mm.
I don't want one soul to die without them having heard the gospel of Jesus Christ. And
Mm.
I know without a doubt that I just want to obey the Lord. And if He wants me to go, then that's what I need to do.
That's powerful, Rebecca, to say what you just said. I'll repeat it so everybody heard. I don't want one soul to die before they can hear the gospel before they're reached. What a powerful truth. May we all live with that grasp of that knowledge. I think about this current situation with COVID-19 and this virus, the pandemic that's affected the whole world. I hear Christians more excited about talking about the virus than I've ever heard Christians speak of the gospel. And it takes us moments where we're drawn closer to the Lord to say, God, what do you want me to say? And I pray that all of us get this boldness for Christ in our witness. And I'm thrilled that you are going to Grenada. I mentioned at the very top of our live stream tonight, my wife and I served there. The former president of the mission and his wife, the current vice chairman of the board, he and his wife served there. It's an exciting place for us to know that you're going there. So when you look ahead 10 years, Rebekah, and you dream about your ministry and what things will look like, what do you dream your ministry will look like?
That's why I'd say my prayer would be that in 10 years from now, I'd be able to look and see the children that I've taught both at the church and in the Christian school would still be growing and learning, and that they would be reaching their own people, their own families for Christ.
Mm.
And ultimately, even that the work would be continuing, and that I'd be able to be reaching their children's children, and that we would just impact generations.
For sure, absolutely. I think about you going to Grenada, and I was there years ago, and you're going there. What's pushing you right now to go? And don't forget, folks, to put your questions in the comment box so we can get them. If you're watching on a live stream, somebody send the questions over to Worldwide's main page or on my page, and we'll see them. Go ahead, Rebekah. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, right now they have a huge need in Grenada for elementary education. While there's a lot of schools there, they all teach religion, not based on the Bible. So my goal in going there is to be able to start the first independent Baptist Christian school for elementary age kids. And I'm hoping, one, it'll help my brother's family, as even his children have to go to a Catholic school, but it'll also help the children coming into the church so that they're not getting one religion during the week and another gospel when they come to the church, and we try to teach them the truth.
Great. I appreciate the explanation of that. Somebody's asking in the comments, when did you know that you wanted to be a missionary? Was it in college, during college, after college?
Yes, well, I got saved during my freshman year of college, and then after that, I knew that I wanted to work with children somewhere, but I didn't specifically feel called to missions necessarily until toward the end of my college, and specifically to Grenada. It was about a year and a half ago in October.
I see. Now, I have a question from my friend Mike Wagar. He's out in Arizona, and he asks this evening, will you be living with your brother and family, or are you going to live on your own? Do you know the answer to that?
Yes, I'm actually planning to have my own apartment. We've actually already looked at some places that I could potentially stay at. I will be living close by to my brother in case there's any emergencies or anything like that. But I want that separation there as well.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. I think it's a great question on Brother Wagar's part as well to say what is the practical, but it's good to have that separation of the two homes and you're able to conduct the ministry. I met your brother when I went to Grenada this past summer with my wife and had a wonderful time of fellowship with him and enjoyed meeting him. And of course, I met your pastor last year as well. And that was exciting when we did the interview up at your church. Melody Lee is asking, when is it your goal to move to Grenada? Now, Melody is Colton's wife, and she's asking about this.
Sure. My prayerful goal would be by the end of 2020 that I would be there and we'd be able to start looking at beginning the school next year.
Good. My friend Chris Lupino, he helps missionaries. He works and develops missionary care is what he does for a group called Gospel Furthering Fellowship. A friend of mine, Rodney Myers, is there, and Chris Lupino is there as well. Chris asks, are there any government issues with starting a Christian school in Grenada?
We've actually already talked with some members of the government there, and they've agreed to allow us to start the school. We already have the building in place and the land, and pretty much all they're waiting on now is a teacher.
I see. So where you're free and clear to be able to do so. Now, I'm a little suspect of this next question of whether he typed it or not, but it says there's a question from Corbin Dietrich. Now, I didn't know Corbin could type yet, so I'm going with his mom, but they're in the Solomon Islands, and Corbin, I think, would be 3 or so. And Corbin asks, are there toys in Grenada? Now, you know Corbin very well, and you can talk about that if you'd like.
Well, there are some toys in Grenada. The kids love to play with balls.
Mhm.
They also love to just climb on the trees or play in the sand and just have fun outside.
Sure. So thank you, Corbin, for your question, all the way from the Solomon Islands as well. What scares you, Rebecca, about being a missionary?
Well, there's a few things that scare me. I know ultimately God is in control and he's going to work things out. Being single, obviously, there's a factor with just living alone in another country.
Mhm.
But beyond that, I would say a little bit more humorous would be that I'm terrified of driving in another country. So the roads in Grenada are horrible. So not only learning to drive on a different side of the road, but trying to fit 2 cars in a one lane roadway is going to be a
Mm.
challenge.
Well, I could tell stories, but we'll let that go. But Mrs. O'Malley never drove in Grenada either. So just for the record. And now Chris Bloomer, Chris is down in Peru, and he asks, have you heard anything lately about the effects of COVID-19 on classes or schooling in any way? Have you been able to hear about that?
Yes, actually, right now, Grenada only has about 12 cases of the virus, but they have shut down everything. They have 1 day a week that they can go and buy food, but beyond that, they're not even allowed to leave their property. They don't have the technology and things that we have here in the US, so the children are pretty much just at home with their families. So, education's pretty
These are challenges. I'm sorry, Rebecca, I cut you off. Go ahead and say the last part.
I just was saying that the education is pretty much stopped right now, as well as church services for the most
Mm.
part.
And Chris and his wife, Rosemarie, would be incredibly sympathetic because they work at a school called La Molina Christian School. And they too are in a period where the school is a year round school and their school has come to an end and they're doing everything online. But that's because of where they are as well. Mackenzie Case, Mackenzie asks, and Mackenzie's been to Grenada. She went with her church. I think it was last summer. But Mackenzie asks, do you have a specific curriculum you'd like to use, or do you want to develop your own curriculum for the school?
Yes, so I do have a very hands-on approach to learning, which most of the kids that I've worked with know. So I will be using some of my own, but a majority of what we use will be the Rebekah curriculum, and we're going
Mhm.
to adapt it to work with the culture there.
Good. My friend Joe Katinsky asked, and Joe's up in the Cleveland, Ohio area, south of there, and he says, can you describe the school you want to start? Is it a one room schoolhouse situation with several ages in one class, or are you looking to hire more teachers as part of the startup? Maybe Joe's going to come to Grenada and help you teach. Let's find out the answer.
Sure. So the school that we're going to be starting will be a one-room classroom, at least to start with. Most of the adults would not be able to be in a position where they could start teaching. So we'll be beginning with lower elementary, so
Mhm.
probably kindergarten through third grade, and then hopefully each year we'll add one more grade to that.
Okay. Well, that's great. I'm glad to know that. It'll be a great way to do it. One of our missionaries, Brother Josh Rhodes, says his daughter has a question. His daughter's name is Mercy Joy. Mercy Joy asks, what kind of animals are there in Grenada?
Well, they have a lot of animals in Grenada. The Mona monkey, you'll sometimes see them in the trees, and some people keep them at their houses in cages as well. There's iguanas, there's lots of insects and mosquitoes, things like that, and crabs. Um, I'd say my favorite, though, is definitely the monkeys.
The monkey. Do you have any pictures of the monkey on your display when you go to churches?
I do have some, yes.
Excellent.
There's also a monkey in the video that we showed as well.
Exactly. That's right, too. So, Mercy Joy, there's your answer, dear. Now, I think Mercy is probably seven-ish or so, but I'm so glad for the question. Luke Shope, Pastor Luke Shope, is asking. He is one of the assistant pastors there or the assistant pastor at Lighthouse Baptist Church in Winchester, Virginia, and he's a friend of Worldwide. Brother Shope says, what are the legal implications of starting a school? Is it something that is relatively easy to begin? Can you elaborate on that?
I actually don't have all of that information here with me right now. I do know that it will be a challenge as far as working a little bit with the government. They do require a teacher to get paid in order to have the teacher status, but they don't actually have requirements as far as what a teacher has to do or what kind of education they've had. I don't know
Mhm.
all the legalities, so.
Sure. Well, it's interesting. The current prime minister of Grenada used to be the minister of education when I was there in Grenada. Dr. Keith Mitchell, good man, and really cares about the education of the program there in Grenada as well. Becky Stallcup asks, how do you plan to fund the school? Will the parents be financially able to pay for the education, or is there an alternative that you're looking at?
So they have a very high unemployment rate in Grenada. So most of the families are not going to be able to have money to pay for the schooling itself. The
Mhm.
government will require them to pay something. So we'll have them pay, but it'll probably be nothing more than enough to cover the basic curriculum.
Mhm.
Beyond that, it'll just be whatever we can raise.
Good. Now, Rebecca, my wife told me that you have on your website a quiz about Grenada, and it kind of stems off of your um, presentation as well as other facts. Tell us about the quiz, and then please tell us where to find the quiz.
Sure. So if you go onto my website on pray the number 4grenada.com, there is a link at the top that you can click on and take the quiz. It's geared toward pretty much anybody that would want to take it. It has pictures to help the kids out. And then you can find out your score at the end and just test your knowledge of what you've remembered about Grenada.
What did Mrs. O'Malley score? Do you know?
Um, I don't remember right offhand. I think she just missed one question though.
We're going to have to send her to Grenada for remedial education then for sure, which I'm sure she would not argue with either. Candace asks, what would be your focus during the summer, or do they do year-round school?
The school will be year round. They'll do little breaks, but the school itself will go throughout every season. If there's heavy rains or storms, they cancel the school. But we'll be doing it pretty much every day. And then on the weekends, we'll have different ministries for the children on Friday nights, Wednesday nights, and Saturdays as well.
Wonderful. Um, Jackie Elward, one of our missionaries to Big Bear, California, asks, what do you expect the cost will be? Is that, I don't know if that's too hard for you to project, but do you think it would be possible for believers to do something like sponsoring a child at the school for a year?
Sure. I would definitely say that may be possible. I don't know all the legalities of that yet.
Right.
We haven't got that far in the
In the
legal side
process.
of things.
Yeah. Well, I promise this that Rebecca's going to be in the comments afterward tonight when we finish up, and she'll have time to elaborate more. The lady who led you to the Lord, I just happen to know who that is. She asks a question. talk about any safety concerns you have as a lady serving there in Grenada.
Sure. Well, I definitely do have some fears, just because of the culture and everything. I'm not real familiar with how they do things. A lot of the people will walk around holding a cutlass, which is kind of like a giant sword,
Machete.
or machete, yes. So I have one of those. I will also be taking some self-defense classes, which
Good.
will hopefully alleviate some of the fears there.
That would be the best prayer card ever, to hold your cutlass or your machete and say, yeah, come on. That's great. I love that, Rebekah. What a great spirit that you have as well. So kind of what excites you about being a missionary? And don't forget, everybody, put your questions in the comments. We got a couple more minutes we can answer questions here, and I want to get to everybody's. But what excites you about being a missionary?
Just knowing that I would be able to perhaps have an impact on children for eternity, and hopefully impact their families as well, and just seeing them grow close to the Lord and seeing the joy that that will bring.
Hmm. On your deputation, as you're out there raising support, and so many ask the question, where are you in percentage in raising your support?
Yeah, so I'm at right around 39% as far as the support coming in, and
Excellent.
about 70% is actually promised.
Wonderful. This is exciting to hear as well. If I had, and I saw several on here asking questions tonight, but if somebody wanted to come and be a missionary on your field, what could they do? Did I lose audio there? If someone came to your field as a missionary, what could they do?
Yes, well, we would definitely need help as far as in the Christian school with the children. They actually have more children in the church than they do adults. We're also working to hopefully grow the youth ministry, which is ages 12 to 35. So we could definitely use help in those areas and with ladies' ministries as well.
Mm. You know, Rebekah, I've got a minute or two left here, and I want you to talk to ladies about serving the Lord and serving the Lord with gladness. Would you take a moment and do that?
Sure. Well, I would just say no matter who you are, if you're a child of God, then He has a purpose for you. And whatever it is that you hold on to that makes you think you couldn't be a missionary or that you couldn't make a difference for Christ, you just give that to God. Just open your hands and say, here am I. And I have a lot of fears and anxieties with going to another country in the unknown, but I know that ultimately God is the one that's in charge, and you just have to take the next right step.
The next right step is a powerful statement. And for every fear, we have God. For every anxiety, we have God. Peter said, take all your cares, cast all your cares upon Him, for He cares for you. That's a powerful thing. Rebekah, you're an inspiration. You may not feel like there you are sitting in this makeshift studio that you built for us tonight, and you're there and you're thinking, I don't know if my message is getting across. Can I tell you something? Your message is getting across, and you're an inspiration to young ladies and young men everywhere. You're an inspiration to fully grown adults, if you will, and you're an inspiration to all of us. And I thank you for being on with us tonight. I learned about your faith and your walk with God, and I thank you for being on with us, Rebekah.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure to have you. And thank you so much, friends, for tuning in for us as well. We will be back here Thursday night at 7 o'clock. I want you to be here with us. We'll show a presentation. We'll ask a missionary questions about their ministry. And most of all, we'll take your questions. And those are the ones I love to get. I love the kids' questions tonight as well. So join us the next time so we can see what God is doing around the world. And with that, I say to you from Kings Mountain, North Carolina, at the offices of Worldwide New Testament Baptist Missions, good night